Satnam ji, hello, welcome everyone. Satnam Sohail, good to see you here. That's good of you to come. Today we're going to talk about Kundalini, Kundalini rising, Kundalini awakening, and some of the symptoms that may come with the rising of Kundalini, particularly when we are not prepared for it. Particularly the negative aspects. We're going to talk about that and how to deal with them. This is going to become part 3 of a series that I started quite a few months ago now. Sanam, Satseva, hello, good to see you. So this is going to be part 3. In the part 1, we explored the myth and meaning and the mystery of Kundalini. What is the Kundalini myth? and exploring in different cultures. And part 2, we talked about the actual rising of the Kundalini. How does it happen? How does it move through the body? And we explored this classical text, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And initially that was it. I stopped there, those 2 videos. But this week I got a message, a comment from, I think it's Misty Boot. She wrote in a different video asking, well, what happens if you actually have some negative symptoms out of a Kundalini rising, or you have some students who have this? How do we deal with that? And I thought, well, I really didn't go too much into that. So we're going to do that today. I'm going to be exploring the different ways in which it can go wrong. And I'm going to be exploring what can we do with that. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my personal experience with Kundalini awakening, which was of the negative kind. I have some negative effects as well, and how I dealt with them, and it may be useful for someone. So if you haven't watched the other parts of the video, you can do so after watching this one, or you may, if you prefer, you can watch those ones first. Particularly in the second one, I was giving a very detailed description of everything that had to happen to have a proper awakening of the Kundalini. And I was talking how it doesn't have to be rush. It doesn't have to be like an incredible experience that brings you out of balance. If you do it progressively with regular practice, something slowly, increasing slowly your practice and having some guidance with an experienced teacher. However, if it doesn't happen like that, if it's not guided and it's not gradual, but it's a spontaneous awakening, it can have some side effects, even some serious side effects. So this is what we are going to explore today. However, before we explore that, of course, always the recommendation would be, if you're going to do anything with the Kundalini, it's recommended that you do it gradually, and you have a teacher to guide you in that. So, having said that, sometimes somebody is not particularly doing any yoga. Maybe they are doing just some inner work, or they are just doing some breath work, and suddenly they may have an awakening like this. Satnam Infinity, good to see you. Namaste. So this video is mainly for those people, or for somebody who will work with somebody who has an experience like that. I mentioned that in the second video, I believe, but I will just say this, that in the kind of yoga I practice, Kundalini yoga, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, I haven't seen anyone have the wrong kind of experience awakening the Kundalini through the practice. I've seen somebody who already had a mental illness, should we say mental illness, who as through the practice of yoga, of Kundalini yoga, it would become worse. I've seen that, but I haven't seen anybody regularly, with regular conditions, no particular condition, and regularly healthy, or like, let's say, reasonably healthy, to do yoga, Kundalini yoga, and have a bad experience. I haven't seen that. So to me, that the process of doing Kundalini yoga guided with a teacher, it's a very, let's say, safe environment to get into contact with your own Shakti, your own Kundalini Shakti. Okay, so some of the things that we were talking in the last video is that we need to strengthen the nervous system, because the filament of the bulb, of an electric bulb, like the light, like you have a light in your home, the filament produces light, and if that light bulb is for 60 watts, you don't put it for a higher voltage, because it would be too much for it, and it cannot support so much energy. So in the same way, the nervous system in humans, this is our filament, and it has to be strong enough to deal with a great amount of energy. Like when the Kundalini rises, there is a lot of energy moving. So one of the problems that may arise is that the nervous system is not ready to deal with that. So problems that may arise with the nervous system, it can be of three types. Like any problem in life, it's always like three kinds. Let me go into that in a moment. In Western psychology, the term Kundalini syndrome to people who had some abnormal symptoms upon Kundalini awakening. Psychologists say it's a kind of psychosis. Have you heard of that? Yes, we will talk about that. That's one of the symptoms that may arise, the psychosis. Yeah, we will talk about that, definitely. Thank you, Infinity. And if you know anything, feel free to talk about this. Seba, I know you also studied psychology, so if you know anything in relationship to the Kundalini syndrome from the perspective of psychology, please you bring it to the conversation. So I mentioned that there is always 3 types of problems: too little, too much, and the wrong kind. This is in general in everything in life. So when we talk about nervous system, if the nervous system was not ready to move the amount of energy that is going to be moving through the awakening of the Kundalini, it can be like not strong enough to deal with the energy, and so your nerves can feel like shattering nerves. It can be it can go to the other side and be hypersensitive. So anything that touches you is like strong stimulation. Everything is too stimulating for you, and you can feel the wrong kind of nervous stimulation would be like the shaking and the trembling and all these kind of side experiences which some people talk about when they have the arising of the Kundalini. Personally, I've never felt that kind of shaking, but I have seen it in the students, or maybe just it can be like a hum, like a vibration, like a feeling of vibration in the spine. It doesn't have to be so strong, but it's generally when these things happen is that we need to strengthen the system. So any of the symptoms that I'm going to be talking about, this is when we were not ready enough to deal with the Kundalini, but it happened anyway, right? So if you strengthen your nervous system, you're not going to have all these shakings and all this trembling and all this hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity can be due to other things as well, and it's also the times that we live in right now. Everybody's hypersensitive. We look at children. Children today are much more sensitive than children 20 years ago. So there is a hypersensitivity in general. But if the Kundalini wakes up, then you need to be able to manage the extra sensitivity in some way. Have a strong core that you can experience what's coming through the senses and not disturb you. So keep that strong core within. I mentioned how the Kundalini yoga in the Kundalini awakening, the ideal is that you are balancing Ida and Pingala, and you are cleaning the chakras, cleaning the nadis, cleaning the Brahma Nadi. If you remember in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, talks about Brahma Nadi, and you do some bandhas and you do some pranayam, and then the Kundalini wakes up. Well, okay. So there is all these steps in the process. There can be issues with any of those steps. So not anybody's, not two people's Kundalini rising experience have to be the same. Actually, they are widely different ones from another, and the symptoms will be very different. And somebody will feel this vibration in the spine, somebody will feel heat, somebody will feel lack of sleep, somebody will feel sleeping all night and then feeling exhausted in the morning. So there is a wide variety of symptoms, but we can categorize them in some particular ways. So in the whole process, I mentioned there can be problems on any one of the stems. What does that mean? Well, it means that if we talk about the Ida and the Pingala, that's the yin and the yang in us, in ourselves. And that happens in the body through the nadis, Ida and Pingala, but it's also representative of our masculine and feminine traits and this relationship, personal relationship to the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine principle, or the sun and the moon. And this is the origin of the word Hatha, the sun and the moon. So the origin of the word describes what that yoga is meant to do. Yoga is meant to balance the sun and the moon, balance the yin and the yang. So if there is an imbalance, you may feel like a tendency towards much more yin or much more yang. The yang, for example, it would be an extreme of heat, and that heat can manifest as a lot of action, a lot of thinking, a lot of doing, but not being able to stay still. It could be manifesting emotionally as a form of anger, and so on. And an extreme, it can be many other ways. And the yin could be this hypersensitivity, for example, is a very yin thing. It can be linked to more emotional. It could be the emotion rather than anger. It could be more like tears and suddenly drowning in an emotion and you don't know how to deal with that. So the process has to begin with this balancing of this yin and the yang. And part of the asanas are designed to bring this balance within us. So if there is an imbalance in this, it can happen that as the Kundalini rises, it may go towards one side or the other. And we want that not to happen. We want the Kundalini to go through the central channel. In order to go through the central channel, we have to balance this Ida and this Pingala. So this is why the Anuloma Viloma or alternate nostril breathing is one of the most commonly known techniques that we utilize in yoga to balance the nadis. Yeah? Because the nadis go through pass through the nostrils. They are connected to the nostrils. They go up to the third eye and they connect to the nostrils. And if we are more active in the left channel of the body, then the left nostril is going to be breathing. So by you changing the breath through the nostrils, what it does in effect is to balance this Ida and this Pingala. So we already have a tip here. I'm going to give a series of tips and tricks on how to deal with this Kundalini rising. And I say rising, I try to avoid awakening because Kundalini is not really fully asleep. Kundalini is always flowing. If there was no flow of Kundalini, we would be dead. So there is always a little bit of Kundalini. It's just that sometimes it goes in like a spring. It throws more water, more energy, or it can be just a tiny little stream. So it can vary, but it's always flowing in some ways. Infinity says, once I was meditating with binaural beats using lambda 200 hertz. Way above gamma brain waves, I experienced energy going up to my brain and like an explosion of bliss in my head. Could it be Kundalini? Yes, it could be. It could be like one of these, like a little, like opening the valve, and suddenly there's this little rush of energy going up to the head and experiencing some bliss. It can happen. And that's one of the experiences that come with Kundalini rising. The bliss is a common one. It may be bliss accompanied with afterwards a feeling a down, like an up and a down. So it can go together. I couldn't have a single thought even if I try, but intuitively knew that if I stay there, I can leave the body. Then I stopped everything. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So it's intuitively, we can listen to our intuition, but if you have an intuition, that's wonderful. But the problem is that sometimes when we have these experiences, we don't have an intuition of what I have to do. And so that's when we need a person to guide us into these practices. Okay, so I mentioned the Ida and the Pingala and the need for balancing the yin and the yang within us. And the asanas would help, but also being aware of what's happening in the body and also the pranayama. Those are things which would help a lot. Then there is the impurities in the nadis. Well, nadis accumulate impurities through a good number of reasons, which could be more physical or could be more emotional or psychological. So, for example, these impurities, you can think of them as toxicity. If you eat meat and drink alcohol, smoke cigarettes, whatever toxic thing you do with the body that you put into your body, that's going to leave some energetic, how did the Hatha Yoga Pradipika put it? Like a phlegm in the nadis. So that has to be cleared out. It has to be cleared out with proper consciousness and attitude towards diet, sleep, exercise, sex, the main issues around the body, and avoiding chemicals and drugs. So that's why we say Kundalini yoga is not compatible with taking drugs. And in drugs, I include some strong medicines, because medicine for, let's say, for an antidepressant, a strong antidepressant, will have an effect on the brain, quite intense. And some of the practices in yoga, in Kundalini yoga particularly, would not be recommended. In those cases, it's much better to not to try to raise the energy to the higher centers, like Infinity was mentioning, but rather bring the energy to the heart, which would be a universal tip or trick that I can already introduce right now. Whatever the experience with Kundalini is happening, whatever it is, bring it to the heart. That's always going to help to neutralize, because the heart energy is neutralizing by nature, and bringing the energy to the heart is going to help neutralize many of the symptoms that we are going to be exploring today. So we talked a little bit about the nadis and the toxicity that accumulates from the diet and from alcohol or other addictions. It can be also through toxic thoughts. Even toxic thoughts will create this kind of toxicity on a more subtle level in our body, in our energetic body. So the importance is to also find some sort of dharma that you can adhere to, that you align yourself with, a code of principles that are, you can say them ethical or moral in some way, that allow you to guide your behavior and your thoughts. This is, if you look at the Yoga Sutras, the very first 2 steps of the 8 steps to Samadhi are yamas and niyamas. It starts from there. And why would that be? Well, let me give you an interpretation. If you are messy in your head, which means that you mess up with other people and create all sorts of karma, and then start doing those practices which are designed to awaken the Kundalini power within you, which is a very strong form of energy, it's very potent, but you don't deal with the mess in your head, you're going to mess up more potently. So whenever you mess up with somebody, it's going to be even more potent. So let's deal with our thoughts. And that's why in the other course I was doing on numerology, when we were talking about Nameseva, I mentioned, and I say it many times, the first step to our spiritual development has to be forgiveness. Without forgiveness, every other step we give, it can be tainted. So forgiveness of ourselves and forgiveness of whoever did anything to you, that has to be a first priority, because otherwise then is when you have any toxicity in your thoughts, and with the power of the Kundalini Shakti, you're going to mess up more powerfully. You don't want that. You don't want to create even more karma. So we have to deal with this. So a certain level of awareness of one's self, of our thoughts, dealing with our personal trauma, real or not real, dealing with the garbage that we accumulate in the subconscious, that has to be done in the process to awakening ourselves. If we don't deal with that, what's going to happen is that as the Kundalini rises, the trauma from the subconscious is going to rise with it as well. Satnam Isabel, welcome. Satnam Ji, hello. Good to see you here. So you notice the word Kundalini rising. Now, it's rising from the bottom, and the bottom of the body, like the first chakra, there is a direct link to the bottom of our consciousness. So as the Kundalini rises and we start to wake up, those things which are garbage in our subconscious may come up to the surface and wake up. And we may be aware of something that we didn't remember that was from our past. So the process of awakening this latent potential in us is a process that can be highly therapeutic, very, very healing, but it can be also tough and intense, dealing with these hidden experiences and traumas from the past that are waking up and coming to the surface. They're coming to the surface so that we now as adults consciously and with the tools of yoga can observe them, can neutralize them and clear them out of ourselves, and therefore clearing the karma associated to them and redeeming the karma of our whole family line that created these issues in ourselves right now. So it's great, but you have to be ready to do the work. So we recommend in the process of the practice of Kundalini Yoga that you already get ready. Sorry for the double words, but you start by getting ready to do the work. And you start from the very beginning doing that work, not waiting for the Kundalini to awaken and then the trauma come to the surface. No, first go and clean it up. And so when it's clean and the energy rises, there will be no extreme manifestation of whatever anguish or whatever fear was there in the subconscious and you weren't aware of it, or you weren't dealing with it and you were aware of it, but you put it, you numbed that part of yourself. And then you wake up, the Kundalini then comes to the surface and then you're in fear all the time or in anguish all the time. Well, deal with that first, and slowly through the practice of yoga, by the time the Kundalini is ready to wake up, it will be as natural and gradual as breathing, and it will not be like a whole traumatic experience. So that's the recommendation. But if it's already waking up, then you're going to have to deal with that, those issues waking up, probably with some professional help. When these issues arise from the subconscious, that's when you have to go to the psychologist, that's when you have to go to the therapist, and hopefully somebody who has some yogic background that they can help to deal with that in a dharmic way. So Jnana Satseva says, as a trauma practitioner, that's what we suggest. We begin the work and recommend the work. Yeah, exactly, great. So they go hand in hand. We should not forget how important is the psychology for the actual practice of yoga. Clearing the post-traumas, beliefs, and healing. Yes, excellent. And you, when you say that, you say through some psychotherapy. Is that right? So it would be through psychotherapy, or do you have some other suggestion on how to clear those post-traumas, the past traumas? If you have any suggestion, please write it down. Okay, so all this was about toxicity in our nadis and actually also in our subconscious that was rising. There was something else I mentioned. I mentioned that we have to work on every chakra because the Kundalini has to raise, the rising of the Kundalini through the spine is going to cross through every chakra. Now it's going to cross through every chakra if the chakras are open and clean and balanced. If any chakra has some toxic energy or is closed in some particular way, then that blockage, the Kundalini is going to go against it, and it may manifest in some negative way through that chakra. So if it's in the third chakra, for example, associated to digestion, associated to our stomach, you may experience it with a lot of troubles with the food that you ingest. Suddenly you become intolerant to a lot of foods. Anything that you eat feels like you feel bloated, or you feel you cannot digest it, or it may go even down to the first chakra and have a lot of diarrhea and all sorts of digestive issues that can manifest with that. Says through trauma therapy, yes, good. Self-discovery self-discovery and adding the yogic path, yoga and meditation. Yes, excellent. It has to be at the end of the day, we always find that the best practice is when we combine all these things. A self-discovery and dealing with our mind and processing what's coming up to the surface of our thoughts through our self-awareness, and maybe some psychotherapist or some teacher that can help you guiding in that. That's on the mind level. And the physical, we have to work the body to strengthen the nervous system, to balance the glandular system, and to release any knots, any tension, anything that can obstruct the energy in the body. That's why the yoga, the physical yoga is there for, and the meditation and the prayer to center us and to allow ourselves to be in the right state of surrender for the energy to do what it has to do. Because Kundalini is going to want to wake up. It's our birthright because we are in this human body. It wants to wake up. We just have to allow it to do the work that it has to do. So if any chakra is blocked, as a result, the Kundalini, when it gets there, it's gonna manifest through the kind of things that manifest with that chakra. So if it's in the heart, I mentioned the third, like the digestion. The fourth, the heart, would be a closing on the heart. Maybe the fear, because the fear takes away your breath. So it's closing here. Emotional attachments and to other people. It can all be a lack of trust, a feeling of distrust, difficulty or insecurity. These can all be things that can manifest as the energy rises here, and then it cannot go through. It's blocked in here. And that's why we say, work on the chakras first, and then do the other practices that is going to wake up the Kundalini. But first, clean the chakra, balance it, open it, right? So that by the time that the Kundalini wants to raise, everything is already in place for it to rise naturally. Infinity says, if that's Kundalini, I had many same experiences through different ways, but my question is how to sustain it, because every time it comes back down, it doesn't stay in the brain, and why it comes back down. Yeah. We will talk about this, Infinity. It could be Kundalini. I'm not saying it is Kundalini, because it can be just a rush of energy. It doesn't have to be like the Kundalini rising. It could be that through a meditation we are just opening these chakras. It's not that we are raising the Kundalini to that chakra. It could just be that you are energizing a chakra and you are having a certain experience. Like in the case you were talking about using binaural beats, that's going right into the brain, so it's activating these higher centers, and so that would create that state of bliss, explosion of bliss that you described. That could be like simply these chakras. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying I don't know. It could be Kundalini. It could be just that the chakra was opening. But yes, why doesn't it stay? Why does it come back down? Well, because we are not ready to sustain it. We are not ready to sustain a state of bliss because we are still holding a lot of trauma, for example, like we were just talking a minute ago, because we are not clean enough in our subconscious. We are holding a lot of grudges with other people. We feel a lot of shame, or we feel guilty, or we feel the victim, or we play all these mental games. And as long as we are playing them, then we are not ready to connect to this pure, transcendental, blissful state that you are describing. So we may have little tastes of it. We may be in a meditation one day or listening to, like you're doing some kind of meditation sound, and then have a little bliss, a little taste of bliss of what it can be. And it's telling you, look, this is what's waiting for you. Now go and do the work, right? You still have to clear the nadis, balance the nadis, and clean this toxicity, and awaken all the chakras and raise the Kundalini. It's a long path. It's a long journey. At the same time, don't get discouraged. Who knows how many lifetimes we have done this before? Maybe we've been Kundalini yogis for 3 lifetimes already, and this is it. This is the life when we're going to do it. So it's not to say this is a long journey, therefore forget it, but it's like take it easy and step by step, and not try to rush. If we try to rush, that's when we get into trouble. And for that, I will share my personal experience with rushing. I will say what happened to me. So maybe I will share that right away, right now. So what happened is, some of you know, I come from a spiritual family, and I tried to pull as far away as I could. I became an engineer, and I was very skeptical of all these spiritual things. Then I had some experiences, and I was confronted with them, and I realized that the science cannot explain everything. So I started to go back to yoga and explore it. However, because of this spirit of independence that I cultivated in me, and I was cultivating it through also my studies. I was doing a PhD in engineering at that time, and I wanted to discover things by myself. So that is a wonderful drive, that to have that spirit of independence in many ways is wonderful, but in some ways can get you into trouble. So I'm going to share the way in which it got me into trouble, because as I came from the world of science back into yoga, and I wanted to explore what is behind yoga and start practicing it, I went fully into that, and I took I took a few books, and I would read something and I would practice it. So I read a number of books. One came into my hands, which was, well, a few of them from the Bihar School of Yoga. Lovely books, really, really nice. And actually, nothing that I'm going to say right now is against those books. It's more to say about my attitude was not the right attitude, because I was trying to learn things from myself. These books, I would say, they are great as a support for you going with a teacher and having the guidance of a teacher and having the book to support your practice. But I didn't do it that way. I took a book called Kundalini Tantra, a little red book, well, not so little, but okay. And I took every practice in the book, and I started with every practice, and I would do one practice for a month, and then include the next one for the next month. Then the third month I would do the last three. On the fourth month I would do the fourth practices. So by 6 months or so, I was doing around 5 hours of practice every day. And maybe half an hour was asanas, maybe 45 minutes asanas, then some yoga nidra, and then the other 4 were just meditation, like 31 minutes of tratakam and 31 minutes of some bandha practice, and so on and so forth. Well, I was rushing. I have this, this wanting to get there somehow, and it's great because it was very motivating to move forward, but it was too much, too quick, too soon, and I had no one to guide me. I was just following that book, and I was also incorporating some other things, and I had nobody to guide me if I was doing it right, if I was doing too much, if I would have to be more selective or not. So I was just going ahead. And so what happened is, after about 6 months of this, as I mentioned, I was doing around 5 hours of meditation, or 4 hours of meditation, an hour of physical. And then I had to do a trip with some friends. We went on holidays to Spain. I was going to show them my homeland. We were in Scotland at that time. And during that week, it was impossible to do my practice. I just couldn't. We were all together, and we were going to the beach and going to visit the many sites that you can visit in Barcelona. It's a beautiful place, and there's all this wonderful architecture. And how can I just sit and do some anuloma viloma like I was doing in the middle of the trip? It was impossible. I would wake up very early, and I would do something in the hotel for the first 1 or 2 days, but then it was only half an hour, and then I stopped it. So I went from 0 to 5 hours, like in just a few months, and then abruptly stopped it. And I was 1 week away. So, I mean, you can already tell that that's a good recipe for disaster. Well, after I came back from the trip, very, very shortly afterwards, maybe a few days, I was walking down the street, and I remember thinking, I feel horrible. Why do I feel so bad? What's happening to me? I feel terrible. And then realizing, oh, I feel normal. So suddenly it was like, comparing to the feeling I was getting before the trip, when I was doing those 5 hours of practices, I felt normal, which is like I had gone back to my neutral state, which was that, out of that bliss that you were talking about, infinity. I was in that bliss before, and then down to 0. And then maybe that day, maybe a few days later, I remember one morning I was walking outside of the college, and a mantra came to my mind and started repeating itself. And I mention it like that. I was not repeating the mantra. The mantra was repeating itself within me. It was the Mul mantra, and I could feel the power of the mantra, and I could not stop it. Literally, I tried to stop my mind from doing it. I'm not the kind of person when I have a mind that I cannot control. This is not me. or it was not, definitely not, it wasn't me in that time. But in this case, I was just unable to stop it. And the whole day it was playing. Ekonkar sadnan karta purak nirbhav nirbera kalmurat ajuni se bangur prasad japasa jugatsa heavy sadnan hosibisach. Ekonkar sadnan karta purak nirbhav nirbera kalmurat. And again, this is not to say anything wrong about the mantra. It's a wonderful mantra. It's one of the most powerful I have practiced. The problem is that I had done this jump into the deep end of the pool, then come out of the pool straight away, and now the depth was calling me, like the hole, like the black hole was calling me. So what happened is that I spent the whole day with the mantra vibrating within, and the night was very troubling, and I wake up in the morning. I was sleeping on the ground on a futon, and I remember opening my eyes, and even before opening my eyes, imagine that there's, this, how do you call that? To produce some air to cool down, these things that rotate on the ceiling, like a fan, like a fan for bringing air. Well, I felt like I was laying down, and I felt like they had put me upside down. They had put me on the ceiling, and I was attached to a fan that was going really this quick. So my whole head was turning around like this really, really, really quick, upside down from the ceiling. It was no astral experience. It wasn't an astral body or anything like that. It was just my mind. I was completely out of reason. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what to do. If I opened my eyes, the whole room was turning around like it's vertigo. And I learned now that this is an experience that people have. It's called vertigo. It doesn't have to be that strong. For me, it was extremely, extremely strong. And it was a horrible, horrible experience. Probably the worst experience I've ever had. It wasn't painful, but I had no control. I couldn't do anything, and I didn't know what to do. And what do you do? What do you go to a hospital with this? I did go to a hospital, but they would not at that time know what to do with me. And later on, they would discover an infection in the ear, and they would say, well, maybe it's an ear infection that's damaging, because in the ear is where we sense the balance, the equilibrium, and so they gave me some antibiotics. And then the antibiotics, I had an overdose of antibiotics or something like that. I was like reactive to antibiotics. Anyway, I'm not gonna bore you with all the details. I'm just gonna say I spent over a month basically invalid, that I couldn't leave my room, barely my bed. Thankfully, I had some people who could help me. But I remember like passing out and falling onto the ground and sitting up and then trying to stand up and crashing on the ground. Totally dysfunctional. Well, now I understand that this was an arising of the Kundalini, and it went straight to the head, and I was not ready to manage it, and I had forced it. This is when the other day I was doing the video, I think it was part 2, and I mentioned Kundalini is a snake, it's like a cobra. And let's say it's hiding in a bush. Are you going to go and play a sweet melodious music for the cobra to come out and prepare a beautiful path for the cobra to walk? Or are you going to go with a stick and hit on the bush for the cobra to wake up? Well, I was the one who did the second thing, and I paid for that. And it took me years to fully recover from that. It took me over a month to be able to function again and go back to the lab and do my research. And but ever since then, I've been having bouts of vertigo. So I'm not fully recovered of that. But now I take it as a barometer. So if I go to bed too late for whatever reason, for 1 or 2 nights in a row, I will wake up with vertigo, very mild vertigo, but I will recognize that that's the symptom that I'm getting out of balance. So it's telling me, go back to balance. It's telling me you have to find your balance again. This is why the title of this video, the rebalancing. Balance is critical. Just like balancing the Ida and the Pingala, just like balancing the energy of every chakra, balance is critical, because if you don't do it in a balanced way, the result can be this, an imbalance in some aspect, physical, emotional, psychological, or mental. For me, it was not emotional. It was definitely physical, and a physical experience, and it was mental, because I could not control my head. And I thought I was going crazy. I remember thinking, maybe I'm going crazy, which is quite a sane thing to think, to realize that there's something wrong. At least you are sane enough to notice that you are going crazy. So that was that. So now I can explain a little bit more. Because it repeated a number of times, even after I came back from that experience, and then I found my yoga, my teacher, my spiritual teacher, Satsang Singh, and I practiced some things that helped me a lot. I will share what that is. But now I can recognize what was happening. So a few details that I was doing very wrong. Apart from going too extreme, too deep, too quickly, one of the things that I was doing wrong is I wasn't strengthening the nervous system enough. I was doing very little asanas, very, very soft. For my young body, as I was in my 20s, I was strong enough to do something harder. I could have done something a bit stronger, and I was not doing it. It was more like stretching and releasing and relaxing rather than actually strengthening. I wasn't strengthening. And that was part of my downfall, because then the body was not ready to manage all the energy. That was one thing. The other is the way in which I took it too extreme. Yeah, that's for sure. Then the other thing is that the chakras have a structure which is pyramidal in nature, meaning that if you think of a pyramid, the base of the pyramid is wider than the top. So if you look at the quantity of energy that you have in the first chakra, it should be quite wide. And then every chakra is a little bit less. Maybe some may open a little bit more. It's kind of like this. Yeah? Because you may have the third chakra a little bit more open someday because you are doing some nabi work. Maybe you have your navel a bit stronger and it's at the level of the first chakra. So it's not like third one less than the first. But in general, the first chakra is very, very charged, and then they are going upwards and they are getting thinner. So by the time you get to the crown chakra, the aperture is like much narrower. This is the ideal in general. There is something very easy I'm giving here. I'm sharing part of my story, and I'm sharing tips and tricks at the same time. Something that helped me a lot to understand what was happening was doing a course called Pranic Healing, which if anybody is having an imbalance on the energetic level of the Kundalini yogas, of the Kundalini rising. So if you are having a rising of the Kundalini and you feel the imbalance in the energy, so if it's more emotional, you may have to do something else. If it's more physical, we may need to explore what it is. If you feel that something is happening with the energy, going to a pranic healing therapy could be very interesting. So I did a course on pranic healing. I did a couple of them. And it was very, very interesting to learn how to measure that. So you've known these exercises where we sense energy between the hands. I'm sure most of you have done this, and you can feel the energy between the hands, and then slowly you sensitize your hands, and then you can feel the energy of any living being, like this plant. You can feel let's say the aura of the living being, and then you can sensitize a bit more and start to measure the energy in the chakras. So you can measure how much energy is coming out of your fifth chakra. So right now my fifth chakra is quite open because I am speaking and I am teaching, so that is much more. And you can measure every chakra like this. It's not difficult. You can do a course on pranic healing, and in a weekend you can learn to do that. Very, very easy. Actually, in a few hours you could learn how to do that. But it's difficult to teach over the internet, so I will leave it for you to learn that. So what happened is, by doing that course, I learned how to measure the chakras. And when I realized is that when I was having those vertigo episodes, my first chakra was almost discharged. It was like the top, and then every chakra was going bigger. So it was like the pyramid was the other way around. So the top chakra was really wide open, and less and less and less going down to the bottom. So the pyramid had inverted itself, and of course a pyramid that is inverted, how can it stay balanced? And so that's what all this crazy dizziness was coming from. How is it like a pyramid? As per my knowledge, at the crown it's infinite energy. Well, you have a connection to the infinite through the crown, but it's not infinitely open. If you measure how open is the chakra, you can measure how open they are. In general, the base is much wider than the top. If you measure the top chakra, you may be connected to the infinite, but it's not infinitely open, right? It has a certain opening. And when the pyramid would invert itself, that's when all this energy is rising. That's when the first chakras discharge themselves, they lose the charge. That's when a lot of the imbalances happen. And in my case, it would be vertigo, but many of the other experiences can be connected to this as well. For example, the psychosis that somebody was mentioning, these episodes of something happening up here in the mind, even hearing voices or feeling something strange, could also be like an too much energy going up. So, what to do? What to do with these cases? Well, let me now say a few things on how to balance the pyramid, how to bring back the energy down into the first chakra. If you feel the first chakra being discharged, or the first ones, the first thing you can do is bring awareness to it, because the energy follows the awareness. So just by bringing your awareness to the lowest chakras, it's already going to bring energy down there. Then the first chakra, if you recharge the first chakra, it's going to help rebalance the others as well. So a lot of the keys are in the first chakra, happening in the first chakra. Now the first chakra is red. So it's very interesting that just by looking at the color red, that's not fully red, it's more orangish, but you can be looking at something that is red, visualizing the color red within you. You can wear red clothes, and you can, I was just, for a moment, I remember, I was in a training once teaching how to measure the energy, and there was one student who, her energy was kind of weak, and then we put a red shawl over her, and immediately her aura expanded like 2 or 3 times the size that it was before. And normally red does not have an effect. Normally the white shawl is what expands your aura. But in her case, her first chakra was so discharged that by adding the red into her, it helped a lot to increase it. So that's something you can do. Then there's a number of exercises you can do to bring energy down. So walking barefoot, doing like sittings, I don't know how to say that, is when you pretend to sit. Let me just illustrate it. So it's like sitting in the air and concentrating on the first chakra as you do that, and imagine a red earth underneath you. You can do that, and you can feel the first chakra charging a lot. You can try it. Don't believe any of what I say. Just experiment. What else? Oh, I had another tool. Let me get it. Because it's red, the red energy is the energy of rubies. And so I was recommended to get a ruby. And rubies are not expensive at all if you buy them uncut. And they have the same energy that if it was cut. When it's cut, you buy it in a jewelry, and it can be very expensive. But I bought I went to a gem stones shop. I don't know how to say it. Like they have geological different stones, and so I bought this ruby. It's uncut. So, and I made this bracelet for myself. This is like an emergency bracelet. It's good for to have in the forest and so on. And I put the gem in here. It doesn't look pretty, but it works. It stays inside. It's very, very fixed. And then I would put this bracelet on when I would feel a little bit lightheaded, or when I feel that the dizziness starts or the vertigo starts. And it's incredibly powerful, very, very, very useful, to the point that I would never travel without it during a number of years. Now, I feel it balanced itself after many years. But let me tell you, even today, I feel some fear when I'm meditating. Because when I meditate very deep and the energy starts to rise, a part of me is like afraid that I may experience that going in circles again, going up. So it's a constant remembrance to go slowly, to take it easy. This is like the story of Icarus flying too high to the sun, right? With the father, they're escaping the labyrinth. They made these wings with feathers and wax, and they are escaping this labyrinth that they have been imprisoned. And Icarus, look, Daddy, I can fly. And the father, don't fly so close to the sun. But, young and the ego and all that. And he wants to go higher. So he gets too close to the sun, and the sun melts the wax and he falls. So this was a good experience for myself, that don't fly too high. Just take it easy and go slowly. So that's a little trick. Is it more clear, Infinity, the concept of the pyramid? Let me know. Also, listening to low frequency based music is in resonance to the root. Yes, some frequencies will do that. Some food that you eat, red foods like peppers and even orange carrots. What else? Seeds, eating seeds is gonna bring to the first chakra, because the seed is the first element. So it's going to bring us to the first chakra. And eating roots which live on the ground, like potatoes and carrots and onions and things like that, with things that live underground. So all those things are going to help to rebalance and recharge the first chakra. Isabel says, thanks for all the videos. I recently discovered Kundalini Yoga, and I am doing introductory training in Karankriya, but I don't know English to follow you live. I'll watch later with the translation. Oh, Isabel, cannot you activate the translation in YouTube? You speak Spanish or Italian, or there should be an automatic translation mode, but it may not be very good. I think with some internet explorers you can do that, and activate them in the Explorer itself, like in Microsoft Edge. I think you can activate it in the Explorer itself, or in YouTube you can put an automatic caption, but maybe it's not working in the live stream. So this video will be recorded, and then it will be in my channel recorded, and then when it's recorded you can ask the video to be translated. Hopefully that works, but let me know, because I'm interested in this, in how it works with the translations. I'm trying to improve that aspect. Thank you. Okay, I mentioned a number of things that you can do to recharge. It's not just about the pyramid. It's something else. There's something else as well. In terms of energy, as this energy, there's a lot of energy going up. And one of the things that can help when we are, because, okay, sorry, I'm going too quick. Infinity was talking about the bliss. And yes, sometimes there is this bliss, but then you go over a wave and then there's a crash. So sometimes you feel ecstatic, but then there is a push afterwards. And we want balance. So one of the ways to balance the energy is through this inner guidance, inner awareness of where the energy is, and guide it yourself. So something that you can do that can help when the Kundalini is awakening, that's something that I would practice often when it would happen, when it would wake up, because it wasn't just that experience. After the years, I had a number of times when it would just wake up, and then sometimes it would be more balanced, sometimes I would have dizziness. So there's something we can do that is useful. Thank you for the time you give us and the knowledge you pass on to us. Very well done. Thank you. Thank you, Sanam. Hopefully when it's recorded, the video, you can have access to the translation, hopefully. Because that's my intention is that the translation should be accessible. So the thing with the energy is you can inhale and exhale and utilize your breath, and you can do this little visualization. As you are inhaling, feel the energy from the bottom of your spine going up to the crown, but don't stay in the crown. Cross through the barrier of the seventh chakra and go into the infinity, into the universe. And from the universe, on the exhale, let the energy come into your crown, down into your body, down, 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 down into the earth. So from all the way down to the first chakra and through the barrier of the first chakra and into the earth, into Mother Nature, Mother Earth. And then inhaling from the earth, first chakra, going up through the crown up to infinity. Exhaling from the infinity through the crown, down, down, down into the earth. Just keep doing that. So it's not just within your body, but you're actually going into the universe, up and then down into the earth. Okay, you can open your eyes. This is, it can, I'm getting high just from doing it 2 or 3 times. It's a little bit, whoa, in a good way. It's in a healthy way, not imbalanced. One of the things that this exercise helps is when some of the chakras are not fully open, and by you visualizing and feeling the energy going up, and I didn't mention this, but it's important that you feel the energy going up through every centimeter of your spine to the crown. So if you feel that the energy is not crossing any point, just stay there until you feel it going to the next step, and all the way inhaling, all the way. And you tell yourself, I'm not going to exhale until the energy reaches the top. So you keep inhaling until the energy reaches the top, and don't stay in the top, because otherwise you accumulate a lot of energy in the head. Cross through, out, give it to the cosmos, and then receive from the cosmos and down into your body and give it to the earth. So be the bridge. Don't take it for yourself. Don't accumulate it, because these, for example, the psychosis things, they are a result of an accumulation of energy here. We don't want to be an accumulation here. We want the path on the channel to be free and clear and to cross through. So doing this little exercise can be very useful. And then there is a number of meditations you can do with this, similar with variations. I've done this for many years. I did one like this for maybe 5 years, non-stop, every day. And it was really, really useful to create that connection again. I did it for 22 minutes because I was feeling out of balance. And guess what? It helped. So this is a good tip on how to create the path that the Kundalini has to find later on. So this is like seeing the Kundalini in the bush and opening a little path for the Kundalini to move. and clearing it out for it to move when it wants to move. I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to open up the channel for her to be able to move when she wants. So that's a good thing to do, to practice this cycle completely. However, there's another thing that we can do as well. Rather than create the whole circle like that, another thing that you can do is the bringing to the heart that I mentioned before. Particularly important if we are talking about any kind of mental illness, which is, it's something that it can happen when the person already had some mental illness before having the awakening. Satnam Infinite Stories, welcome. Good to see you here. It could happen if the person already had some form of mental illness, but it could also happen that the person never showed any kind of symptom, and suddenly their whole life turns upside down, and they have these thoughts and these ideas and these visions and these hearing voices, seeing sounds and weird, strange things. And then it could be as a result of an awakening. Maybe the person wasn't even ready and it just happened naturally. Maybe they forced it in some particular way through some pranayama or something that they learned from somewhere. Maybe they went to one of these places that they activate the Kundalini and they do it and they feel wonderful for one day, but then afterwards all the energy gets accumulated in this way. Whatever the case, there is a problem with this, which is that when you have a case that you feel like you are going crazy, like the experience I was saying, Namaskar, Sandesh, Gungaram, hello, Satnam, good to see you here. What happens when you feel that you are losing your mind? This is very, very tricky. And please, whatever I'm going to say, don't take it as medical advice, okay? Even when I'm talking about the physical body, if you're having some physical body experiences, go to a doctor. What can happen is that you are having this process of the Kundalini waking up, and that can be a very much an energetic thing, but that is so connected. Body, emotions, mind, spirit is all connected. So something that is happening on one level may materialize in another level in another way. This is the whole science of psychosomatic disorders, right? It can happen in the body and you start in the mind. Well, the same way with the energy, you can have an awakening of the Kundalini and then that materializes in the body in some way. For example, like an ear infection or like some dysfunction of the digestive system or something else, or it can be something more painful or even worse. So no matter what, we recommend go to the doctor, right? Don't avoid that. Now, I said that. Okay, now let's talk about the mind. If you've never experienced any form of mental disorder and you suddenly start hearing voices, we have to be very, very careful here. And I'm very reluctant. You can feel how careful I am with my words because this is dangerous and I don't want to take responsibility where I shouldn't. Now, I remember my mantra teacher, he said that he was doing some volunteer work in a mental institution, and because he had this intuitive insight already, he could perceive some of the issues that were behind why those people were there. He said up to 70% of the people he saw there, they had just had some form of spiritual awakening, and they didn't know how to deal with it. And then they told a doctor, then the doctor medicated them, and then the medication got them out of balance, and they got addicted to the medication, and they were now in a loop where it's very difficult to get out of. So psychiatric medication is very dangerous. But at the same time, there is such a thing as an imbalance of the mind, of the brain, in a way that you need some psychiatric intervention. So not to go to a psychiatrist is equally dangerous, right? So that's why I'm very, very careful about how how can I say this? I've seen cases of people who were misdiagnosed, and then they were for years taking the wrong kind of medication for some sort of psychosis, and it wasn't that. But then they pay for the consequences of a misdiagnosis. Then hopefully, I've seen people, they find the right psychiatrist, and then eventually they help them out of that medication to find a more healthy lifestyle, and actually it will have consequences of having taken drugs for many years. However, what about if you need it? Because there are psychotic people, there is schizophrenic people who suffer from this, and they need the medication. So how can we say that, first of all, not all mental disorders are spiritual experiences? Not at all. So we have to be very, very, very careful with this. Now, if you've never had any kind of mental disorder, and suddenly you are doing a meditation and you start hearing voices, my first reaction would not be, they are going crazy. It would be, maybe they are opening the sense to something that they have never experienced before, and they have to learn how to do that. So what happens is that if somebody has a Kundalini arising, this can trigger some of these experiences. So I have to go. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sohail. Good to see you here. And until next time. Satnam. So, this is not medical advice. I'm not telling you not to go to the doctor, but I'm not telling you to go to the doctor either. I'm saying you're responsible for knowing. And if you don't know what's happening to you and you need or not need a doctor, then you should see somebody who can help you with that, some expert into whatever is happening to you. So seek the right advice. And that's why also following the story I was telling before, my personal story, that's why we need guidance. That's why we need a teacher. We need somebody who can tell us when we are getting out of the path, when we are diverting and we are going down a path that is not very helpful or maybe healthy for us. So if you are experiencing some of these forms of altered states of the mind, being schizophrenia, psychosis, or anything like that, and even if you suffer from that, so if you have a mental disorder like that and you are being medicated, this is the thing to do. Hands on the heart and energy into the heart. So don't raise the energy to the crown and into the cosmos and then come down, because the people who are in their minds, they are already too high up. Rather, bring the energy to the heart. And if you are a yoga teacher, like some of you, Satseva, I know if you are still around, I know you're going to be teaching yoga soon. If you teach Kundalini yoga and you have somebody in your class who is already medicated for, let's say, schizophrenia, first of all, it's difficult to have them in a regular class because they are being drugged. So maybe they are, a little bit out of themselves. But in any case, these people should never try to raise the energy to the crown. They should bring their hands to the heart and just bring the energy down to the heart. So I think this is a good general approach to anybody through any of these experiences. Bring the hands to the heart, bring the energy to the heart. That's going to help to balance and neutralize. Sundays. I'm really sorry to disturb you. You don't disturb, just, feel free to say anything. I need some personal advice regarding my feelings and sensations. I need your guidance. Please let me know how and when I can contact you. Thank you. Oh, Sandesh, you can find my email in the information tab of my channel. In the channel, just look for the information tab, and there is an email, a contact email there. You can write there. We can talk about your personal things. Yeah, sometimes it's something private and you don't want to say it openly. But if you don't mind saying it openly, I'm happy to address it here. That's why I'm doing live streams. That's why I don't record the session. So I'm happy to address it here. But if it's something that you prefer to talk privately, then just feel free to write an email. By the way, I don't declare myself as any kind of expert on this matter. Okay, I practice Kundalini yoga. I've gone through the process of Kundalini awakening in the wrong way myself. So I've learned some things that are useful, but I'm not a particular I don't claim any mastery of any of these topics. So, for example, if you have some pranic imbalance, I would say look for a pranic healer. If you have some mental imbalance, maybe you need a psychotherapy. So I'm just here sharing some of the concepts that anybody can find their own way. But don't take my words just like the last advice. Gabriel Sadnan, Gabriel, good to see you here. I'm constantly dreaming about death. What are some Vedic texts that talks about dreams? I don't know, but dreams are something that comes out of well, there are a few different kinds of dreams. Some dreams are telling us something else, something that they are guiding us in some ways. But mostly dreams are just a manifestation of the subconscious. Whatever is happening on the subconscious level is rising in the dreams. And so dreams about death, what about death? Is it like fear of death, or is it like your death, somebody else's death? What's happening there? That are the dreams trying to tell you something? Do you feel that they tell you something? I believe we are the ones who need to interpret ourselves, our dreams, not telling to somebody and somebody telling us what it means, because we are the ones experiencing them. So if you are aware of them and they are affecting you in some way, then it's for you to explore what they mean. Are they telling me something about my fears in my subconscious, or are they telling me something that I should pay attention to? All right, where are we? Okay. Let's round up. Let's go a little bit to general understanding of the manifestations. They can be, I mentioned, physical, emotional, they can be energetic, it can be psychological, it can be spiritual. Yes, agreed? Yeah, I do. So if it's something physical, first of all, check with a doctor, because there might be some manifestation on the physical level, on the body. There might be some issue that you have to deal with. You may have to maybe take some pills or whatever. That doesn't mean that you are working on all the levels. Sometimes you have to treat the symptoms as well. The cause may be the Kundalini, but maybe the symptoms have to be dealt with as well. So go to the doctor. But it can be good. First, thank you for subscribing, Gabriel. Good that you subscribed. I appreciate that. So you can go to the doctor, but also check a number of things. What's your food situation? Your diet, is it healthy, is it not healthy? Because some of the problems that it can happen is maybe you cannot eat anything. Everything, it's just like not accepting your body. You can have diarrhea, you can be overeating, you can be overcompensating, trying to compensate for that height that you are reaching with the mind, trying to eat 2 pizzas in a row to try to come down to the body, which should be a symptom telling you that the energy is going too high up. So I cannot give a formula for everybody. We cannot give here, this is what you have to do, because every person will have different things and different causes of those things. But I will just throw some ideas, and then one has to check what's happening. But in any case, what's happening with the diet? Am I having a healthy diet? And if not, can I make it healthier? In which way? And how can I avoid toxicity in the diet? Because if there is toxicity, that's going to be affecting the nadis. So how can I make it as pure as I can without getting obsessed about the diet? So that's one thing. Sleep. Again, too much, too little, the wrong kind. You may be, after a Kundalini rising, you may be oversleeping and then, sleep 10 hours, but then you wake up exhausted and then you haven't recuperated. That's too much sleep. The wrong kind of sleep, you may find like waking up every 2.5 hours with dreams and bad dreams. And, like Gabriel is saying, maybe you're having nightmares about death or something which is then telling you something about what's happening in the subconscious, which is something to be aware of, okay? Because the Kundalini rising, I mentioned this at the beginning of the talk, maybe you weren't there, Gabriel, so I just mentioned now. As the Kundalini rises, the things in the subconscious also rise. to the surface. So they are there to be processed, but you have to be aware of that. Too much, the wrong kind, and too little. Some people, they have a Kundalini rising and they just cannot fall asleep. They spend hours and hours with the eyes open, looking around, too much, all the energy going up. Remember the pyramid? The inverted pyramid? It can buy all the energy up and you are like awake all night. I've experienced this. And it can be not fun, especially for many days. And this is what happens. If it stays like that for a long time, sleep is so necessary for ourselves that we may feel we're going crazy. And sometimes it's like going crazy is not the consequence of the Kundalini, but it's a consequence of not sleeping. And the not sleeping is a consequence of what has been arisen from the subconscious, or there's too much energy up in the head, and that's why you're not falling asleep. This is when you would have to practice a number of things. Bring the energy down to the first chakra, massaging your feet. I didn't mention that. Massaging your feet with some oil, with cold water in the night, cold water in the feet, and then a little bit of massage, and the feet bring the energy down. Because you want to go to sleep, sleep is down. And sleeping on the right side to stimulate the ida, the yin energy to fall asleep. There's a good number of techniques on falling asleep. I'm thinking we will do another video on sleep, because sleep by itself is a big issue. We can do 1 or 2 videos on that. But yes, if there are other consequences, they might be as a consequence of not sleeping well. So taking care of your diet, taking care of your sleep, exercise, how much exercise you're doing. If there's all this energy going up, okay, you're moving a lot of energy. Why not bring it down into the body again? So for me, I mentioned one of the issues that I caused myself is that I was not doing enough physical exercise. So there has to be always a balance between how much physical work you do in pair with energetic and pranayama and meditation. Every time I close my eyes, says Sandesh, I feel a strong sensation in between my eyebrows. I do breathing exercises and jap every morning. At times I can feel it at the base of the Mula chakra. Please advise me. Yes, the strong sensation between the eyebrows is most common. This is the waking up of the third eye, and that's perfectly natural, particularly because many of the meditations are destined to wake this up. Now, why would that be? Partly because this is the chakra of intuition, and because any spiritual path is going to take you through a journey of having all sorts of weird and strange and wonderful experiences. When they come, we want to be ready to process them in some way. So awakening the intuition allows you that when an experience comes, if they come, you don't have to force them. Some people go looking for experiences. We don't have them. Okay, we don't have to have them. I mean, you can have just a progress so natural in the awakening of the Kundalini and your consciousness that nothing weird is happening in your life, and you're just feeling more joyful, more graceful, more happy, more peaceful in your life every day without, seeing the cosmos and without flying like an eagle and things like that. So everything can be very smooth. However, if an experience comes, we want to appreciate it intuitively. Like what I said before, I'm having strange thoughts. Should I go to a psychiatrist, or should I ask my therapist or my energy healer, whatever? Should I go to Reiki, or what should I do? Well, intuition is going to help a lot in these cases. So the opening of the third eye is going to help for that. At times I can feel it at the base of the Mula chakra, and that's the base. That's the first chakra. So some days you're just feeling the experience of 2 chakras that are waking up. It could be Kundalini, it could be not. It could be just these 2 chakras. So I would say you are doing breathing exercises. You are doing jap sahib. I imagine you are chanting. And do you do anything physical? Because if you start doing some breathing and maybe some meditation, this is the point I was making before. we need to work on the physical body. We need to strengthen the nervous system, balance the glandular system to be ready to move all the energy that is going to be moving. So I would ask you some days, do you do yoga? Do you do some exercise like running or something in the outside, outdoors, something like that? So this would be everything about the physical. I mentioned it can be physical, energetical. I explained quite a bit the concept of the pyramid. I explained the concept of going into the heart. You might need to, if it's happening in the moment, you have a Kundalini rising and you don't know how to manage the energy, go to some pranic healing or maybe some advanced Reiki practitioner and ask for help to rebalance. So that would be the energetical. Let's talk about the emotional. You're in martial arts? Yeah, that's great. Martial arts is a wonderful complement for meditation. That's really, really good. But if you want to be more, let's say, precise in what is happening, then you may combine martial arts with a little bit of more structured yoga class. Maybe you can find some yoga teacher near where you live, that can guide you what is happening in every chakra and have a natural process of awakening these chakras, because it's already happening naturally. And so help it a little bit with a little bit of yoga might be useful. Infinite Study says the same thing happened to me about 6 months ago. Now I can control it better and activate it myself. What thing happened? You mean the thing with the third eye? The eyebrows and or what do you mean, Infinite Studies? I'm not sure which one. So I talked about the physical, I talked about the energetic, the emotional. With the Kundalini rising, there's highs and lows. For some people, it can go into the emotional a lot high, a lot low, like incredible experiences of love and union with everything, and then feeling so close, so depressed. Because when you are opening up, when you go out into the universe, let's say, I'm being a little bit dramatic, but that's the thing about the emotional. The people who get stuck in the emotional, they get overly dramatic. They have this dramatic experience of union, then they come down and they feel so disconnected. It's like losing the meaning. It's like, what does it mean? What does my life mean? What do I do with this now? So they receive this little bit of taste of bliss, but rather than encouraging them to, okay, now go and do your work to get there naturally, it does the opposite. It kind of puts them in the bad mood of like, oh my God, I'm so disconnected. Look how much I could have, how disconnected I feel. And that can be very depressive. So the emotional work would have to be, it might need some therapy, it might need some psychotherapy maybe even, but it would definitely need to work on the subconscious. So meditation to clean what is happening in the mind and to have a lot of self-awareness and self-reflection on what kind of mind games am I playing. If anybody wants to know more about mind games, I have a whole course on the mind and I explore the mind games in detail in the course and in the Karam Kriya course on number 7. And that's very useful to know how to deal with those things that happen in the mind that are going to be creating all those negative emotional states. The third eye sensation says, yeah, okay, it was happening to you as well. Now you can control it better and activate it myself. Yes, we give a lot of attention to this point when we are doing yoga, and to be able to concentrate here at will, when that's going to center us, it's going to calm us, and it's going to bring balance. Now myself, because of what I experienced about the vertigo, I very often, rather than meditating on the third eye, meditate on the tip of the nose, because it brings you down also towards the earth. So concentrating on the north, even focusing the eyes, Nasikagra, on the tip of the nose, helps me a lot to be balanced and to stay in the earth. I'm very tall, I'm very vata. I have a tendency to go up. So bringing down to the nose, it helps me to ground myself. Even beard helps me a lot. It may seem silly, but bringing the energy into the beard. Having a strong beard brings energy down, and it helps me to calm down. In men, the beard brings emotional balance as well. So if you are experiencing this emotional disturbance with the highs and the lows that I was mentioning, and you are a man, try leaving the beard on and see how it feels. There's a martial arts called Tai Chi. It's mixed with meditation and breathwork techniques. Yes, Tai Chi and Qigong. It was actually from Qigong that I got the exercise of circular breathing. A friend of mine taught me this he does Kung Fu and Qigong. And he taught me that exercise, and it's really good to create the path, the energy channels in the body, and to clean them and be able to move through them quickly and clearly and easily. Now I'm very comfortable with them, so if I feel too much energy going up, just through my awareness, I can bring them back down and always be in this balance. Yeah, we are in the world, but not of the world. We don't have to escape to the heavens. We just need to stay in the heart. Yeah. So always find the balance, go back to the heart. Also in Qigong, also related to Chinese martial arts, there's similar practice as you mentioned called microcosmic orbit. That's the one I meant. That's the one I meant that I learned. It's only that I took the microcosmic orbit, and when you are having a Kundalini rising, you can expand the orbit to not just go to the top and come down, but to go to the top, go out into the cosmos, go inside, and then down to the first chakra and outside to the earth. So it's an expansion of the microcosmic orbit to discharge so that you don't, because it's a lot of energy that's moving with the Kundalini. So give it out and give it down. And this giving out brings me to the next point, the spiritual. I mentioned the physical, the energetic, the emotional. I talked about the mental quite a bit. So I don't think we have to talk more about that. Maybe mention another thing. The ego is incredibly powerful. If we don't control the ego, if we haven't dealt with it, if we are not in consciousness, and we don't have a teacher that is kind of telling us what the ego gets out of place, it may happen that your ego will be thinking that we are getting enlightened and that we are becoming a Buddha because of whatever experience you are having. And sometimes we can have such a powerful visualization or fantasy in our mind that it may make us believe that we are becoming enlightened. And so we have to keep the ego in check and be very careful with that. That's why sometimes having a regular check with your teacher will help you to see, oh, look at this. And the teacher, well, be careful what you're doing, right? Calm down. Don't go so high. So I talk physical, emotional, energetic, psychological, and let's go to the spiritual. Now spiritual. One more thing, which is don't get the ego so high. What can we do? Go down. So one tip that we can utilize when we are having these experiences that is really useful is to bow down. And you have to be very, very aware what you are bowing to. So I recommend having some form of altar, like the one I have right here, having some altar, some reference of what is high for you, your highest reference, and you bow down to that. This is where you put your ego down, where you put the head below the heart. And when you offer any experience, because sometimes this is what happens, sometimes these experiences become problematic or traumatic or negative because we are fighting against them. And sometimes if you just relax and let them happen, whatever has to happen, it's just about giving it and surrendering. So this finding a reference, finding something that you can you bow to. This is your altar, is alternative, right? The altar is the alternative. If you don't go to the altar, you go to the ego. So where can I bow to? Where do I put my ego down? Where can I bow my head and put my head down on the ground and surrender? And that's going to be critical. Can you make a video on sexual energy transmutation? Because it's also related to raising the Kundalini. This is also mentioned in Taoist sexual alchemy and Tantra. Well, in sexual alchemy and transmutation, they are basically doing the microcosmic orbit, as far as I know. I've read some book on that. What was his name? The Superior Man, I think it was the name of the book. And he was talking about this, creating this orbit of energy. In relationship to the sexual energy, you can do the orbit even during the sexual act. And it can be multi-orgasmic, even for men. The experience of moving all this energy, not localized in the second chakra, but actually moving it through yourself. But I believe these Taoist practices are, a lot of it is based on this, creating this orbit of energy, which is transmuting the energy, the ojas, that is the sexual energy in the second chakra, transmuting it. Because, Kundalini is a sexual energy. Kundalini Shakti is a feminine, but it's a sexual energy. And as it rises through the spine, it's, well, what does the sexual energy do? The sex has the capacity to produce a baby. Yeah, it can create life. So it's a creative energy. So when you have all this sexual energy within you, as you rise it through yourself and bring it to the higher centers, you're bringing this creativity into your higher centers. So your idea, your mind, your thoughts, your purpose can be aligned to how can I serve? Yeah, this surrender concept. How can I serve? What is my destiny? What is my purpose? And how can I align myself with that purpose that is of service to someone? And then with this energy rising, you have all this creative energy to be able to create things out there. So this circle of energy, this circular of energy, is very useful for that. If it makes sense, Infinity? I've said a lot. After everything I've been speaking right now for an hour and a half, if I had to take two things, I would take two things, two very important things. Something is happening. You had an awakening, an arising. Something is rising and you cannot control it. Okay, don't try to control Kundalini, this snake. Don't try to control the snake. Can you just bring your hands to the heart, bow down, surrender, and let whatever has to happen, happen. And surrender the ego, surrender all your intent to control anything, and just be in your heart. Find an alignment, find the altar. What do you bow to? Okay, I'm not just saying bow to what? You have to find your reference. You bow to that. Give any attempt to control of the experience and just neutralize in the heart. Experience may go and then they may neutralize. And as you find the neutrality, as you go back to the heart and it neutralizes, as you come back and you recuperate yourself and you can reflect, what did you get out of that experience? What do you learn from that experience? What was the message and what are you learning? Then from there, do a little scan. How do I have to adjust my life to go back to balance, to keep this balance with the extra bit of wisdom and energy that I got out of this experience? What do I have to do on the physical? What do I have to do on the emotional? What do I have to do on the energetic, on the psychological, on the spiritual? Always keep in check all these levels. And do I need some professional help? Is there something physical I need a doctor? Is there something energetical I need some healer? Is there something mental that I need some psychiatrist or some therapist, even better for me? Is there something spiritual and I need some spiritual teacher? Can I find help? Can I surrender also that? Can I allow help? and then keep that attitude in the heart. Wahelu. That's it. That's all I have to say. All right. Again, I'm not. I don't claim any mastery over this topic. I talk about many things. This is an important topic. I know many people click on the video because it says Kundalini and it can be very appealing, but I hope it was of service in some ways. If it was interesting, feel free to click the like button and share the video with others who may need it. And thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone who commented. Thank you, everyone who was here interacting with me, and anyone who subscribes to the channel, and all the members who are supporting it as well. Wairu, thank you, Sandesh. Thank you, everyone. Satnam, until next time.